is that a lot of people don't think about the terms of allocation, right? People just tend to think about prioritization, and allocation is something where, you know, product executives, especially chief product officers, would do that all the time, right? So tell us a little bit more of, you know, as you talking to or meet many sort of the budding you know, CPOs, so the people on track towards that track, what are the things that they may or may not realize? This is a huge difference, right? If you're like a director of product, VP product, and there's a CPO, what's the differences of the thinking and the focus and how they can sort of make the transition and go into a different mindset?
Yeah. So when I explain like the difference between levels in product management, and also I do not like SAFE's product owner versus product manager split, which I had a very long conversation about with one of the guys who implemented it. And he helped create SAFE. It's on the podcast, Product Thinking Podcast, if you guys are interested. You have 3 different usual skill sets for a product manager, which is like tactical, operational, and strategic. Tactical is like, how do we actually build products and get it out there into the world? So working with your developers, doing the design, understanding like how to get a feature live. Then there's strategic. I'm going to skip operational and come back to it. Strategic is really like, where are we going? How are we going to achieve the vision? So long-term thinking, it's really about like, what are the big problems we can solve for customers? What markets can we enter? Do we expand geographically? It's making like trade-offs from a business level about moving a product portfolio towards a vision. And then operational connects the two. So your operational is basically like, how do I get from tactical to strategic? And that's like all of your roadmaps and your communication and strategy deployment there. It like basically puts it into practice. Now, when you're a team level product manager, you are 90% tactical, but you need to be a little bit strategic. Like you should be strategic and operational. You got to have a little bit there to make sure that you are building the right products and to be forward thinking that way. Where I don't like SAFE is that they make it 100% tactical. There is no strategy associated with it. And product managers are usually responsible for setting the strategy and then just dictating what's built to the product owners. Don't love that. So the problem is like, if you don't actually practice your strategic skills as a team level product manager, how are you ever going to be a director of product? How are you ever going to get to the next level? And that's where I get annoyed with those distinctions. So when you're a VP of product, you are usually split 50-50, like strategic and tactical. A lot of VPs of product are really responsible for the roadmaps. They're usually solidly over at least one product line. They're figuring out how to like coach the team, get the team all going, set the strategy for one product line, expand the team, usually characterized by like a lot of hiring, train the team, and they're managing that one roadmap forward. As a chief product officer, you're usually over a portfolio of products, and that portfolio of products can be very complex. So you're also going after a lot more business-focused goals, and you're usually a lot more commercial than a VP of product. So you need to deeply understand the financials of your business. You need to deeply understand how to increase your revenue, serve costs, and how different strategies get you there. Usually characterized in smaller companies, at least, by a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And you have to understand how that's going to help further your product line. And chief product officers usually see a larger scope than just product. So design sometimes reports into them. We've even had engineering report into them sometimes, only when it makes sense and when engineering is leading product and we have to correct that. So like a CPO role is way broader, way more commercial, way more financially focused than a VP of product. And it's a lot more complex, the products that you actually oversee. So the biggest hurdles that I see for people who want to go from VP to CPO is one, understanding that like your first team is no longer just your product people. Like you can't just go super tactical into the weeds. What are we building? You have to make your first team the rest of the executives. That's usually the thing that prevents fantastic product people from becoming a chief product officer. And where I actually see a lot of people get fired from the role is they forget that like you need to go make friends with the chief revenue officer, like in the salespeople, right? Like you should be talking to them daily. And sometimes we brought up on this, like, oh, sales and product shall never meet. And like, we all hate each other. And it's like, no, that does not work anymore. You have to like talk to people, bring them together, negotiate, get some wins with them, make friends. Like that's a huge part of being a chief product officer. So like you are at the executive table now, you have to think like an executive there, but you have to see them as your first team. You have to make sure that you are actually filling in the gaps and defining the strategy. You can't just wait for it to fall into your lap. So we say, like, you have to produce results. You may not have all the answers, but you got to enable yourself with enough data to make some answers. And if you can't get that data, like, put the stuff in place to do it, right? Do the work. Like, it's you at the end. I used to work with Melissa Perri at Insight, and she'd always say, like, the cavalry is not coming. Like, you are the cavalry. There is no cavalry coming. Like, when you're the chief product officer, that's right. It, right? And I think that's exactly the mentality. Like, you can't wait around for somebody to tell you what to do. You got to go in there and take charge. And in companies, it's such an important thing to remember. And sorry, what I was gonna say is, like, it's such an important role in any company that uses software. Like, you're sometimes making or breaking the business strategy. If you're in a SaaS company, a lot of times the product strategy and the business strategy are super intertwined. So, like, you have so much responsibility to actually set this and move it forward. You got to take that responsibility.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Especially today, nothing else drives revenue, right? The product is the only thing. All you sell is the product, then your product is the ones that driving revenue. So, and I totally hear you that I've seen some of the newly promoted chief product officers is still working with their team, still having the VP of product mindset, still has the functional mindset instead of thinking about the business level, strategy level, working with. And it's interesting to see. If you think about the chief product officer has like two friends or two kind of challenging friends, and one is the revenue officer getting new business, and the other one is the chief customer officer, so the retention. So you kind of always kind of like, and sometimes CTOs, right? Your tech debt, you constantly have to like balance and juggle between these really competing needs across the business.